I've got a pretty high capacity personally, but I was reaching my limits and I knew we couldn't really scale the business with just me. We needed to bring on a more executive level personnel. And yeah, so we knew we've got an ambitious sort of 5-year plan. We wanted 6 times our revenue. So I wanted to bring somebody on board who's kind of done that before. So we went through a really rigorous recruitment process. We ended up finding somebody through like a 3-phase process, and so it gives me a lot of confidence that he's done it before.
Welcome to the EO Business Podcast. I'm your host, Linh Podetti. This is the place where we bring you authentic conversations with exceptional entrepreneurs, unpacking the challenges behind their success stories. In today's episode, we're joined by John Reale, an EO Melbourne member since 2023, founder of Realcorp Commercial Cleaning and Profit Navigator. John's entrepreneurial journey is nothing short of inspiring. Originally an accountant, he stepped into the unknown and faced his fear of sales to start a cleaning business, despite not feeling fully ready. His hard work paid off, and today, Realcorp employs around 100 cleaning staff, providing ongoing services across a range of industries. But John didn't stop there. After freeing up his time by hiring a GM, he launched Profit Navigator, a virtual CFO and bookkeeping business designed to help small and medium-sized enterprises grow. Combining his accounting background with entrepreneurial insight, John now helps other businesses thrive in ways he once only dreamt of. Join me in welcoming John as he shares lessons on overcoming fear and scaling a business to run without you.
This episode is sponsored by
Great design is something that improves with age, like me. And this, a lifetime guarantee. That's important. And because Mia specialises in all of these things, of course I put my name on it. Introducing the new Mia Durham Alma range. Mia, with you for life.
Welcome, John. So excited to have you on the show.
Great to be here. Thanks, Lynn.
Well, I'm a Melburnian and I always love to have a Melbourne guest. So tell me a little bit about your journey in starting a cleaning business in Melbourne.
Yeah, okay. Well, I started my career actually, of all places, I'm a chartered accountant. So it's very different to the cleaning industry, which I'm in now. But I suppose, I always had dreams of running my own business. I didn't really want to work in an accounting business long term. So I kind of identified the cleaning industry as one which, from the outside looking in is pretty unsophisticated and lacks a lot of, system, process, control. And that's the sort of thing as a chartered accountant you build your career on. So, sort of identified it from the outside. And then I guess I dipped my toes in the water initially as a side hustle. So literally, I was trying to drum up business on the train, on the way to work, and on the way back. And then literally one of my first clients knocking on doors of businesses around where I worked in my lunch break. In the space of, I suppose, 18 months, 2 years, it sort of built up a bit more momentum. And then I guess at the end of it would have been end of 2018, we had enough business for me to be able to quit my day job and concentrate on working on the business full time, which I've been doing ever since.
So tell me more about your cleaning business. Is it residential, commercial? What's your niche?
Yeah, so we don't do any domestic work. So all of our work is sort of commercial sort of scale work. So our biggest sector is strata. So we work for owners corporations and basically, apartment building common areas. That's probably about 60% of our work. And we also do some student accommodation. We do offices, a little bit of aged care and a bit of health, and a bit of food manufacturing as well.
And tell me, back in the early days when you first got that client, did you already have a cleaner? How did you go about in finding and vetting a great cleaner? Because cleaning is one of those area that people, especially residential, example where you're like, I want a cleaner, but I don't know how good they are and all that. So how did you kind of build up the team of great cleaners?
Yeah, well, literally at the start, my biggest block mentally was sales. So my biggest thing was to try to get a sale on the board. And we got the first one, and the company was like desperate for people to start. They're like, "Oh, can you start like tonight? And I was like, yeah, sure, we can start tonight. No worries. I literally had nobody, no equipment. So my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, it was an absolute trooper, and I called her up. I'm like, I've just won a client, but bad news is they want to start tonight. We haven't got anything in order. So she jumped in and did the first cleaning shift for us, which is amazing. But after that, we worked together for maybe a week, doing some cleaning work, and we quickly realized, it's not really how we're going to scale the business. So, I started looking around trying to find some people who we can employ and then we can manage. And, the whole thing was, I'm good with systems and processes. It's kind of not really utilizing those systems and processes if I'm just an owner operator. So, yeah, that's where we sort of made that decision pretty early to not do the work ourselves and to work on the business and to oversee. Also, we actually got a complaint in the first week, and I was like, yeah, I'll have a speak to the cleaner, like acting like I was, the business owner, but the cleaner was me. So pretty quickly learned that I'm probably not the best cleaner. So I'm up at having somebody doing the work, and I can manage them.
Yeah, I have so many emotions around that because I also feel the same. Starting out, you always have to wear so many hats and pretending you're big. But I'm so curious about how you're able to sell it without having cleaners. So did you also try to sell it without a website, without the business up and running? Were you just testing the concept? How did you win it?
Uh, I had so many mental blocks. Like I had every excuse under the sun to not do sales. Like I was like, oh, I can't do sales until I have a business card. I can't do sales until I've got a website. I remember even saying I can't do sales until I've got a company brand pen. I was just like being ridiculous. And I've got an accountability partner who I used to catch up with every two weeks at the start just to keep me on track and to drive me. And he was basically called me out um, on my blocks and excuses, and he's like, "Look, you just need to get a new client in the next 2 weeks. I don't care how you do it. Whatever motivates you, like think that something's going to happen to your family or something. If you don't, but it just needs to happen." So I don't think I had a website or anything at that time, and I remember in the pitch I was like, "Well, we've never lost a client. I've never had a complaint." Literally, because we didn't have any clients. And we got us over the line and sort of gave us the opportunity then to sort of, we start earning a little bit of income. We can then start putting money back into building the infrastructure of the business, and to get things like websites and things like that, which make it easier to grow.
Yeah, yeah. And I do like the fact that you weren't good at cleaning, which is a best blessing in disguise because then you had to scale yourself, out and you needed to find more cleaners. So what were some of the methods that you used to hire and scale over the years?
Yeah, there's a lot of trial and error, and we've done a lot of learning and fine tuning over the years. So initially, it was literally Gumtree to find our first people, and like luckily, I found somebody pretty good at the start, and he was able to take on the small jobs that we had, and then ultimately we got some bigger contracts, which meant we need to be a bit more sophisticated in our recruitment. And eventually we really just rely on our own network now. So we've got big internal WhatsApp groups where we funnel people into those sort of recruitment channels. So we've got probably 2,000 cleaning candidates in our WhatsApp groups at any one time, and that's staff referrals or we can post ads on Indeed and funnel people through into our WhatsApp groups. And when we have opportunities that come up, we post them in the group, and then we vet people and we come up with a short list and give trial shifts, and then ultimately supervised employment until they
Yeah.
like yeah.
And I guess I imagine at the beginning you would be having contractors who you would, contract to when you get the job and you're like, hey, I want you to work with these clients. But eventually, did you have to then invest in full-time workers? Because it reminds me of similar to my outsourcing model. At first I could outsource overseas to someone on a contract role and then increase their hours. But then eventually, in order for me to actually grow my business and have a reliable team, I had to hire them, full-time. So was that something similar for you?
Well, actually, the cleaning industry is like largely made up of a lot of cowboys, and they run that sort of contracting model. We made the decision really early on to run the direct employee model from the very start. So I guess it probably comes from my background as a chartered accountant. I'm big on compliance, but I also have a moral compass, and I want to make sure that people are getting paid fairly. Like, the risk with the contracting is you'll contract somebody, you think they're doing the job, but really they could just contract it out to somebody else, and that person can contract it out to somebody else again. And really the person doing the work is getting, maybe $15 an hour, and everybody else is clipping the ticket on the way through. I want to be able to rest easy at night knowing that the actual workers on the ground were getting paid fairly. So when we were small, it started off with as casual employees, but they were always employees, and they always got paid the award, and they always got their superannuation and all that sort of stuff. And really, that's just scaled as we've grown. We still employ directly for everybody. But yeah, obviously now as we've got more work, that we're able to get them more hours, so it's more viable for them to be more dedicated just to Realcorp.
Yeah, that's excellent. I can see why the benefit of having them, not have to worry about their paycheck and knowing that they will get that income and focus on their work. You also mentioned that you were not good at sales and you had to learn it. What are some tips that we could take from you going from someone that avoided sales to, I guess nowadays you do sales and that's what you do and you probably fallen in love with it. So can you share a little bit about the journey?
Yeah, I actually do love it now. It's one of my favorite things, and I guess at the start maybe I thought I needed to be slick and salesy, but I think the best salespeople are the more genuine ones. And literally, if I meet a prospect, I just want to understand what their problem is, and if I can solve their problem, that's how you can make a sale. It's not about trying to trick them into hiring us. That doesn't work, and I think it's just being genuine. And if I can't help them, there's no point having the sale. It's not going to work in the long term. So if we can identify their problem, solve it, and work with them, like, the sale will look after itself.
Mm. And were there any courses, any books, anything that you've used to help you in that journey? Or is it just purely practicing, working with real clients and then realizing, oh, actually, I can be myself and I'm closing the sales?
I think early days, I listened to a bit of stuff. I think it was like Zig Ziglar, The Art of the Sale, very like American style sales. But for me, I guess what I got out of it is, the problem solving approach to it rather than being slick. So yeah, it's probably something that just gave me a bit of confidence and a few different strategies on how to sort of close a deal.
Mm. Yeah. And so in your industry, is it still kind of reliant a lot on in person, kind of going out there, meeting, door knocking into the businesses, the companies, and then introducing yourself, or was there other strategies that helped you to?
I've basically tried everything. What I've learned is there's no silver bullet in my industry. It's very much relationship driven. So, I'm just constantly, maximizing how many lines I've got in the water at any given time. And my strategy is to essentially to be front of mind when an opportunity comes up, so that they know to contact John at Realcorp. If their current contractor falls over or they're not performing, I'm the next best alternative at any point in time. I've tried SEO, I've tried Google Ads, I've tried Apollo campaigns, I've tried every magic silver bullet, and in my sector, really, it comes down to trust and relationships. People aren't, in my experience, Googling who's the best cleaning company in Melbourne for their office that has 100 people in them. They're reaching out to their friends or people who they trust in similar industries on who do they use and who can they recommend.
And so did you feel like with all the other marketing strategy, it was just way too cold and just wasn't providing any results? So now you're sticking to kind of in person. But are you doing it yourself still, or have you scaled that yourself and you've got other salespeople?
Yeah, at the moment, I'm still doing it myself. I've got a general manager who helps with it as well. But yeah, ultimately, as we get a bit bigger, we'll have a BDM. But I think as like the founder and leader, you're probably going to be the best salesperson. So I think I'll always be in some way involved with business development.
So tell me more about the GM. There was a bit of a journey and transition into getting yourself out of the running day to day, I guess, and then having the GM. How did that come about?
Yeah, essentially, I think we just kind of we kind of hit our operational ceiling, and we came to the point where I knew I needed to bring in an extra experienced head to help build up our capacity to go again to that sort of next level of scale. So our GM's worked in the industry for over 20 years, and he's actually scaled other cleaning businesses, over sort of 5-year periods of time. So he had a track record, runs on the board. So he's been with us for a year now, and really it's just been a bit of a reset to make sure we've got the infrastructure in place to go again. We ran very lean for the first sort of phase of the business, and now to be able to, we got to a medium size. To go from medium to large, we really need to build up the infrastructure and the capacity. So that's where we've sort of we're consolidating now to be able to go again.
Mm. Why did you decide you needed a GM at that time? Like, was there some pain point that was happening, and did you feel like you were overworking? Was there anything that made you go, it's time that we needed a GM? And what were you looking for in terms of the quality, some of the tips that you can share with us when it came to finding that perfect fit?
Yeah, to answer the first part of your question, I think, I've got a pretty high capacity personally, but I was reaching my limits, and I knew we couldn't really scale the business with just me. We needed to bring on a more executive level personnel. So we sort of, we knew we've got an ambitious sort of 5-year plan. We want to 6 times our revenue. So I wanted to bring somebody on board who's kind of done that before. So we went through a really rigorous recruitment process, and we end up finding somebody through like a 3-phase process, and so it just gives me a lot of confidence that he's done it before.
Mm. Do you also have a leadership team that helps his job, or is it really him managing all of the rest of the cleaners and the jobs?
Yeah. No, definitely we've got a team. So we've got our scheduling team who look after, we've got a beast of a roster, as you could understand. We've got 100 cleaners who have to look after and organize shift fill-ins and replacements and new contracts. So that's like a moving beast. So it's a team that looks after that. And then we've got an on-ground supervisory team who does our quality inspections and sort of client relations. And then there's the accounts, obviously. There's different facets. So the GM sort of oversees all of those facets and then reports to me.
Yeah. Great. Well, since cleaning is such a, I guess, traditional industry, how have you applied new technology and the recent AI and stuff into the industry? Because especially since you haven't started that long ago, which means that you are a lot more modern. Because I remember, I think it was like 20 years ago when I first started working in a corporate job, and my job was purchasing officer, and we were recruiting a cleaning company, like tendering out to a cleaning company. And I remember there was a cleaning company that was ran by a really old guy that's been around for so many years, and he was even writing handwritten proposals and handwritten everything. And you can just tell that business compared to one of the competitor that was bidding that was a little bit more, I guess, advanced. But that was 20 years ago. So how is it like for you guys nowadays with, injecting technology into your business?
Yeah, I'm really big on utilizing smart technology. So we've got a really compelling operating system which has like geofencing built in. So literally the cleaners can't check into their shift unless they're physically at the building. And then once they've checked in, their scope comes up on their phone. They work through their scope in real time. Um, and then at the end of the shift, they have to check out. So we know to the second how long they've been there. So that gives us certainty over time and attendance, and at a high level sort of scope compliance, which is really compelling because we can't actually be at every site when the cleaners are always there. Like, yes, we have touch points, but we can't. It's not viable to be there all the time. So that gives us a good level of confidence. We've also been utilizing some other cool stuff recently. So we've rolled out Jotform, which is like an electronic form building software. which has been amazing because it just streamlines processes. So we're utilizing that, and then we're also Zappiering results through to Excel. So, for example, we've got like a staff candidate form in job form. The candidates will fill out the form, tell us what their experience is, how long do they have on their visas left, what type of visa do they have, what's their background from their native country, and all that information goes through the form. And when they submit it, Zapier then sends it across to like our Excel staff candidate database, which all happens live. And then we're able to filter by, all those metrics when we're trying to fill a job, like where do they live, how long do they have on their visa left, all those really cool things. So it's a great way to recruit and to being able to filter by what you need before you outreach to your candidates. And then AI, I'm just, like everybody else, loving ChatGPT at the moment. It's been super powerful with building SOPs. For me personally, I've been doing that a lot lately. Telling ChatGPT, I want to make an SOP on this. What do you need to know? And then it will shoot through the questions to me. I'll answer them, put it back into ChatGPT, and it will give me a really compelling SOP. And in most cases, I actually don't need to change much at all. It pretty much nails. So it's super powerful.
Yeah, I totally love everything that you mentioned about automation, which I only discovered like a few years ago. And I'm like, I didn't know that could just go straight into there. And ChatGPT, I think the more you keep working with it, the more you discover how smart it is. And I actually learned something from you just then, asking it what it needs to know from me, because sometimes I think I have to figure out everything to tell it and whatever it spits out. So I think it's having that dialogue and yeah, amazing. Thank you for that. Because you work with cleaners and they're kind of different types of workers, they're not all office based. Are they resistant to any of the tools that you implement, or any challenges that you have to overcome when it comes to adopting technology?
Most of them are pretty good. So most of my cleaners are sort of first generation migrants, or even students, international students to Australia. So most of them are, younger than me, and they've actually come from professional backgrounds. It's just that Australia won't recognise their backgrounds. So it's quite inspiring actually that they come over the other side of the world. I've had doctors, I've had psychologists, I've had dentists, professors coming over the other side of the world to start from scratch as a cleaner, and they're happy to do it just to find a better life in Australia, which is pretty inspiring. But yeah, so I've got a lot of really high caliber people who work for me, and so they're kind of all for the tech. Really great.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And, at first you mentioned that because you're a chartered accountant and you can see the numbers, you can see that it's a, I guess, profitable business that you could develop. But over time, have you found a different purpose to this business? Like, you started to touch on the fact that you're creating this job opportunity for new migrants. Tell me more about what you've discovered now that you've been in the journey for so long.
Yeah, to me, like business aside, like that's one of my biggest whys in business, and that's to give an opportunity and like a initial sort of footstep into life in Australia, and helping people with a bit of stable and fair employment, because a lot of people can provide employment for like really vulnerable students or migrants, but I'm really big on making sure that it's fair and that they're not exploited. So yeah, to me, that's huge importance.
Mm. Okay, so now tell me a little bit about your journey to EO. Like, how did you discover it? What was that turning point that made you look out for something like this? And what's your experience so far?
Yeah, I was introduced to EO by a good friend, Mace Rushgrove, who's also in the Melbourne chapter. And yeah, to me, it's just like he told me that he joined and was telling me a bit about it, and I was just like, wow, it sounds like pretty compelling. I mean, I don't have a heap of business owners in my life. I've got a lot of my friends are employees, and they don't have the same struggles that I have as a business owner, and you don't want to really complain to them about your problems in business, because they just see the facade and think, oh well, like John's doing really well, like what's he got to complain about? So it's great to have people going through the same issues. And like in my forum, for example, we're all completely different businesses, different industries, but we've got the same issues in business. So it's just, I mean, it's super compelling to be able to resonate with people going through the same stuff.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've been in it for 3 years and I'm really loving it. And, the opportunity to even interview people on this podcast has been, I guess, amazing for me because it's like free mentoring for me. But it's just, I just love how much fun we have together. There's so many people that are like us. Are there any, I guess, special moment or highlight that you remember since being an EO? Like, oh, I remember that time that you did something or went somewhere.
Yeah, I've probably got a couple of absolute gold nuggets from EO. It's been lots of small learnings which compound and make a big difference. But one of the nuggets that I got was about engaging a advisory board. So it's something that I've actually implemented recently. So we've brought on a board advisor who's helping us to open up new sectors of opportunity. So he works. His day job is a group BDM for a business which doesn't compete with us. It provides a different service, but to the same clients which are in our target market. So he's got a fantastic network. So he's working with us to help identify potential opportunities. So to me, I never would have thought about that as an opportunity or somebody like that who's accessible even if it wasn't for learning that through EO.
Great, great. Now this leads me to the fact that you were mentioning that you kind of scaled to the point that you are no longer needed in the business as much. And so it's allowed you to have time to start something else. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, I guess since hiring a general manager, the idea is that the business isn't as dependent on me as much. Like I think I'm still going to be very active in Realcorp indefinitely, but it gives me a little bit of capacity to think what else is there. And one thing I've learned is I'm a bit of a business nerd. I'm the guy at parties who likes talking about business and strategy and what are people rolling out to in their business plans. So I've done a full circle and I've almost gone back to my roots in accounting and I've started up a virtual CFO / bookkeeping business. And the idea being that we do the bookkeeping cheap offshore and then have local oversight to make it accurate. But then there's the bit that I love, which is integrating the numbers with dissecting it and identifying what might be profit leaks or might be opportunity costs and presenting that to the business owner to help them strategize and to improve their profit. So the very early days, but it's kind of done the full circle.
Yeah. What made you decide to do that versus, hang on, there's still, I guess there's still opportunities to reap out of the first business. It's already established. How do I get it to 6x and not sidetrack onto this?
Yeah, well, it's a good point. I mean, I definitely don't want to neglect Realcorp, and I will not. Like that's my baby. So I'm still going to be very, very involved with Realcorp, but I guess ultimately, my position in Realcorp will narrow. I'll be more focused on business development and high level strategy, which is just going to give me capacity to do some other things which I'm interested in.
Yeah. And what are some learning that you got from your first business that you're like, I've completely done it so different for this business because I've learned that?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing is, I think accountants are good at numbers, but they're not necessarily good at business, and they might be great at saving money on the tax return, which actually means less profit. But I think now, given that I've had that experience as an accountant, like I understand numbers really well, but I've combines that with understanding business really well because I've founded and scaled an operating business and I've been involved with operations. I think combining the numbers and the operations is a pretty compelling sort of package. So I think that's important. I've learned so much. I mean, I couldn't tell you what. It's so many things I've learned in business and mistakes I've made and strategies that work in certain industries like SEO, which don't work in my industry. Second time around, you just don't spend money and time on the stuff that doesn't work.
Yeah. And what have you learned about yourself now that you've been in business for a long time? How have you changed as a leader or as a person or as a dad?
Oof, yeah, good question. I think as a business owner, you need to be so rounded. Like I was at the start, I was only good at accounts, and we didn't even have any clients to have any invoices to bill. But yeah, no, then you get more confident in sales, and then you're involved with operations, building systems and processes, and mentoring people and coaching people. So I think you just become, yeah, incredibly rounded as a business owner, especially in the startup. And then I'd like to hope that that sort of, you know, plays out in my personal life. I've got 3 young kids. So, I want to be an example for them and to spend lots of time with them and make sure I'm not working ridiculous hours. So, we've got systems in place for the business. So it's not, I'm not working crazy, 60-hour weeks or anything like that. I can spend time with my kids and my wife.
Mm, yeah. Now, this leads me to my last question as we wrap up to our podcast is with everything that you're trying to do, growing the business, growing the second business, and wanting to, spend more quality time with the kids. But ultimately, what do you want to be remembered for? What's the impact you want to leave to your kids or to the rest of us?
Yeah, I think had a bit of a think about this. I really think it's helping give people a bit of a foundation into an opportunity. It might be as they come into Australia, like Realcorp could be the first company that they work for, and a bit of a foothold into you know developing themselves and building into their communities into Melbourne or anywhere in Australia. So, it's not going to revolutionize their life. They're probably, they might stay for a couple of years and then move on into something else, which is more aligned with their profession, which I view as a success story. But if I can have sort of some part to play in, building that foundation for their lives, then, I'm happy with that.
And what do you want your kids to remember you for?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess, to me, you can read as many parenting books as you want. I think as long as you're there for them when they need you and you love them, that's my modus operandi. That's what I want to do.
Mm. Well, thank you, John, so much for the opportunity to talk to you. I'm so excited about your new business. Do let me know when that virtual CFO is ready. Yeah, because it's something that I think my clients would be interested in as well. So I love to be able to refer to you. But thank you for your time. I'll make sure to put all your details in the description below. But thanks.